G'day and happy Saturday to you. This is the 6th of June 2026 edition of Message of Hope, brought to you by George Louie here. 91 years old. What am I talking about? There's mortgage arrears and more than £30,000 of debt. Creditors keep coming from every direction. This forms the basis of my story for today. And this quote, and I need you to hear it exactly as he said it: our mental and physical health and way of life is seriously threatened. That's probably the only memorable thing I can remember from the article I read. And that article was about Ken Riley, okay? A man in his 90s living in England. And when his story surfaced online, a section of the internet told him to cancel his Netflix, even skip fancy coffee. Well, I'll leave that where it is. Internet can be a really cruel place to be. Because what got my attention wasn't just the comments, you see. It was the image of a man at 91 years old, but still being chased. Yeah, still being hounded. Still owing, apparently, and still unable to rest. So that image did something to me, and I want to tell you why. Are you ready? Now, I've carried a home loan in the past, and most people listening to this probably have or will going to have one. And I want to be honest about what that actually felt like, because I don't want to think we talk about it truthfully enough. I wasn't reckless taking it on. After all, I had a family, young family at that time. And moving from suburb to suburb, chasing cheaper rent, well, that's disrupting to the school, to the kids' schooling every time we shift. That was its own cost. I wasn't prepared to pay for that cost. So I signed for the loan. 30 years for that loan, eyes open wide. And I accepted, I did it, because it was the thing to do. Let's get on with the family. But there was a moment, sitting there looking at the amortization schedule in the first year, seeing how little of that monthly payment was actually touching the principal. Very little, can I say. When something settled over me that I hadn't expected. Now, I'm going to tell you, it wasn't a panic attack or something shameful. Just this quiet, persistent weight over my head, right? The bank letter arriving each month, the direct debit clearing, and a voice underneath, all of it saying, you're not free yet, you've got to keep running, got to keep working. The image it produced every time was a rat on a wheel. You know the rat race thing? Yeah, it wasn't dramatic. It's normal life for everybody. It's just relentless. And attached to number 30, as in the 30 years, that feeling had a very long runway ahead of it. Okay, it was a long slog it felt. Now, multiply that by 30 years, okay? Just then imagine still running at 91. Keep running, keep jogging, keep doing a 95, yeah? And that is what landed on me when I read about Ken Riley. Now, before I go on further, here's what I want you to hear. As you know, this is my favorite part of the message. Give you a Bible passage. And the favorite one, of course, comes from Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7. It says, a lot of you know this, the rich rules over the poor and the borrower is the slave of the lender. Yes, the borrower is the slave of the lender. It wasn't designed as a metaphor that Solomon reached for it lightly. After all, a slave does not set the terms, does it? A slave, some cars banked up. Now let's go across. A slave answers when the master calls, regardless of circumstances, and regardless of what else is happening. Again, regardless of what a decent response to the situation might actually require. Yeah. And that last matters. So hold it for a moment, because I'm going to deliver something some of you may disagree with. But I hold on to the view that debt is not a sin. Okay? I haven't seen a Bible passage saying those exact words. And I want to say that plainly, because I don't want anyone hearing this to feel condemned for having a mortgage or a car loan or credit card balance. Again, just for today, debt is not a sin. But debt can be a horrible master. And I think that distinction matters enormously. When I first read Ken's story, my honest instinct was not pure sympathy. The man had 9 properties, right? He sold 7 of them over the years, apparently without problems, and yet he still ended up there. This debt. Something doesn't add up to me, I thought. Was this money mismanagement somewhere along the line? I don't know. Not here to judge him. But for my time working at a payday lending company, yeah, I saw a debt that has a hold, debt as a hold on people. Yeah, that's what it does to people, isn't it? It can suck the energy out of people. Now, Ken's numbers were big compared to those people who borrowed small loans. His properties were real assets, but the shape was the same, isn't it? His fixed rate mortgage, which was 3.09% to be exact, expired in January last year. His monthly repayments jumped overnight from, guess this, £251 to £691. More than double, close to 3 times the amount. And that's nearly 6 months later. His profits had essentially disappeared, wiped off from the sheet. Then, to make matters worse, his tenant stopped paying rent. £750 a month is gone as well. Oh boy. And then he found a buyer, and a buyer offered £170,000, which would have cleared everything with roughly £70,000 to spare. But listen to this. The bank had already instructed receivers without his knowledge. Banks really want their money. So the sale was blocked. A sale that would have solved the entire situation, but it wasn't allowed. Do you hear what I'm saying? Yeah? The borrower is a slave of the lender. This wasn't a man who spent carelessly across 15 years, was it? The fixed rate expiring, the tenant stopping payments, the lender acting before the sale could complete. These were the things that finished him. It would have broken his heart, I reckon. Could he have planned more carefully for the risk? Perhaps. And that's worth sitting with, honestly, right? But here's what I also took notice. His tenant, according to him, were elderly, unwell, right? She begged him not to evict her until her new council property was ready. And Ken, I guess he has got a heart of gold, 91 years old, already in arrears, already running out of options. He said yes to her. Bless his heart. But in the middle of his own crisis, he chose the decent thing. That's not hard to do. Well, you probably have guessed the council property got delayed. The tenant stopped paying rent while she waited, and the bank moved in. That's the picture of the financial strife he was in. Yeah, the Mortgage Works said, Mortgage Works, which is the company lending out the money, and I'm quoting directly, the decision to instruct receivers was not taken lightly and followed the expiry of the mortgage term, at which point we had not received evidence that a sale was progressing. End quote. And Ken said this, in a way, I curse myself for being a decent guy. How do you process that as well, right? Someone's trying to do the right thing, try to be kind and compassionate to people who are worse off than him, and yet he got delivered this punch. That line should not be possible. A man should not reach 91 and say that. A system in which a decent act, that is an old man choosing not to throw an elderly sick woman into the streets, becomes the thing that finishes him financially, it's probably a system with a serious problem somewhere inside it. That's my opinion from 90,000 above. Now, if this channel is finding you at the right moment, please consider subscribing, because there's a fresh conversation here every day about money, faith, and other topics, and what the Bible actually has to say about those things. Okay, remember the verse? The borrower is a slave of the lender. So hear it again, especially when you hear Ken's story, okay? He wasn't extravagant. I don't believe he was. He didn't seem to be reckless. He was a man who took on debt as a retirement strategy and managed it carefully for over a decade, and then found that when the system stopped cooperating, the rates, the tenant, the timing, yet unfortunately debt did not stop cooperating with the system. Yeah, you can see the master kept demanding, regardless of the circumstances or any decency, and regardless of the fact that he was 91 years old and had chosen the decent thing. Yeah, maybe someone should have gone to helping out with a GoFund campaign. I don't know. And that is what a slave is. Now, I'm not saying this to make you afraid of your mortgage. That would defeat the purpose, okay? I'm not saying that. I'm not a doomsayer. I'm not a grim reaper. Because I carried one before, and I know why people take them on. For family, it could be for stability, and for the school that doesn't change every time you move. After all, home loan is often the least bad option on the table. And I understand it completely. But my friends, before you sign, count what debt costs before that's beyond the repayments, okay? It's not just the interest rates. That's the easy number. The harder number is this. What freedom are you trading? What choices disappear when the lender's schedule becomes your schedule? Think about that. What happens to your ability to act decently, even generously, humanly, the way you actually want to act? Can you do that when there is no room left between what you owe and what you have? For me, it was the letter arriving, that direct debit that's to be cleared. The voice saying, keep running, you have to. I guess for Ken, it was a system that punished him for choosing kindness because he had no room left to absorb the cost of that choice. So count that cost before you sign, and not focus too much on the rate, but that one. Ken Riley became a landlord at 66 to fund his own retirement. You can say he managed well for 15 years. He sold 7 properties, he kept 2 still, and then the rate changed. Yes, again, I'm telling you, the tenant stopped paying, and the bank moved in and the sale was blocked. He is 91 years old, yet he's still running with his wife. Again, this is heartbreaking. He said, in a way, I curse myself for being a decent guy. Ken, there's nothing wrong for you to be generous and kind. My friends, what does debt have a claim on you in your life right now? I'm not talking about just the balance, but the choices, the freedom to act the way you actually want to act when the system stops cooperating. And that is the question worth answering before the direct debit letter arrives. And that today is today's message of hope. I hope you enjoy a little antidote, a little story. It'll be helpful to you. Let me know in the comments, especially if you disagree. Thank you, guys. God bless you. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.